one, we're giving the players some agency, but two, we're going to let them build out their background and backstory a little bit more. And three, we're going to, we're going to incorporate it and tell more story with it that the rest of the group can get involved in.
I'm Nerdarchy Ted.
I'm Nerdarchy Dave. Welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds.
All right, so we kind of have a different style video today, huh?
I don't know if it's a different style, but it's definitely something that's came up in conversations that we've had. And today we're going to be talking about D&D character sheets, but probably not in the way you're thinking about. Not necessarily like, it's not an explainer video, right, like how to fill out a character sheet or what does the different D&D character sheet looks like, or what is the best D&D character sheet, or maybe even the most important question of where do you put the bonus or the number on your character sheet. We're not going to deal with any of those topics, but more so about like the player knowing their character sheet and, kind of in a specific way. And there might be some other ways that we can get into as well.
All right, so this is kind of inspired by, something that we saw on Twitter from Drac. Says, I feel like background features are weirdly underused in D&D.
So, okay, right. There's a bunch of backgrounds at this point. Some of them are similar, some are variants, but all in all, like depending on what you're playing with, if you're using third-party stuff, if you're using all the official stuff, there's a lot of backgrounds. There's a lot of background features, right? And in the same vein of background features, you also have another thing connected to backgrounds, and that is the personality traits and the personality characteristic. Personality traits is one of those. Bonds, ideals, and flaws are part of those as well, right? So again, like so this is like the bulk of the background part of your character that has no mechanical bearing, right? Like they all give you like tools, languages, and skill proficiencies, which, doesn't matter as much. You need to know, you'll have them on your character sheet. The DM really rarely needs to know if you're proficient with a thing or not. They'll ask when it comes up.
Right.
And then also, like we're mentioning, like, all these things that are tied to your background. That's actually how, like, the player's handbook suggests the inspiration mechanic works as well, where it all ties into that. Now, we're going to get into the specifics of, kind of what Drac had said and what inspired this conversation on the other side of...
Hey, if you happen to like this video and all the awesome content over on Nerdarchy and you'd like to help support us, you can come check us out over on Patreon and throw us a bone over there.
As a special thank you, you'll receive 5e content for both players and DMs alike. We make feats, spells, magic items. Sometimes we turn them into print and play cards, drop-in encounters, all kinds of things. You name it, we're probably making it. There's even a chance to game with us, Nerdarchy, over there. You can find a link to a Patreon download free sampler up here in one of these cards, as well as in the description. All right, so, specifically, the background features. How do we make them more useful in our games? And, do we just expect our dungeon master to remember them all?
Memorizing every character's, character sheet is definitely a problem for some DMs out there. Now, I know that there's people out there who are data junkies or have the ability to just is like, all right, I've got all the things that I need for this particular session for each particular character. And they have the time and the willingness to go ahead and prep all that. And I'm not going to say that that's wrong if that's the style that you like. For Dave and I, who are a lot more free-flowy, run by the seat of your pants style gaming, like that's just not how we game. Dave brought up, your personality characteristics and their attachment to, inspiration. If you don't know what those things are, how are you supposed to award inspiration when they cause a challenge to the particular player? Like I can only recall one time throughout an entire 20-level campaign where my cleric was like, I can't tell a lie, and it came up. All right, well, he's a good guy. He's not going to lie, but there was a time that we were trying to do something sneaky and he was having a conversation and, I'm like, I can't do that. Never mind. I'm just going to stop talking.
It's kind of been a detriment, or the other players begin trying to run interference. And literally, like in that game, you as the player had to say, my character will not tell a lie, right? And then begins to like tell the truth, right?
Right.
The truth, right? So, the idea that the DM has to remember all these things is very difficult, but you can just state them, be like, hey, I have this feature in my background. I would like to now use it. And it can be handled, one of two ways. And I think the way it would be handled in our game is the DM is now going to begin improving this whole thing. For instance, like a lot of the backgrounds have like, oh, you can stay someplace for free for X reason, right? Like the acolyte is like, oh, if there's a church or temple where you are, they'll put you up, right? And I feel like the way we would handle that is like the players would go to the church or the temple, they would state what they wanted, and then they would begin meeting various NPCs until they got the benefit of the feature, right? And it's definitely, that is definitely a style of play that you may or may not want to engage in, but it is more work on the DM because they have to improv.
And coming up with NPCs on the fly, remembering the scenario of this particular character can get this background feature and this character has this background feature. I really feel it's the onus of the player to say, this is what I have, this is what I would like to do, because the DM's already got so many things on their plate. They're balancing all of these other things, monsters, NPCs that they've already come up with, and things that you aren't even aware of. So to have to do this on top of it, can be a bit intimidating.
Now, I feel like as the GM, you can try and improv that. There are probably things that you can do to try and improve that. But before we even get into those things, you can also ignore it. Not in the sense of ignoring the background, but you could be like, hey, I want to enact this feature. And the DM might just go, okay, you do that. You have a place to stay. You're staying at the church of your God, and then just move past it. Now, I feel like these features were put in place not to give you a way to save a couple silver or gold from staying at the tavern, but to facilitate role playing in the game for you to interact with other NPCs and the other players and have storytelling moments, not a way to save 2 gold or 1 gold or whatever it is, on your character sheet.
So the elements that I look at here are the things that, can be easily taken away. I do watch, a number of streamed games that I've enjoyed. And one of the games that I watch, the DM, there are many times that they reach out to the players when something unexpected happens, and whether they're getting a name or some details or combination thereof, they say, okay, you tell me who this person is that you're interacting with. And not only does this give them a moment to kind of begin getting some ideas in their own head, but it also allows for player agency of like, what, I haven't interacted with any Dragonborn. Can this guy be a Dragonborn? Or, hey, there's not enough people with this kind of scenario. Can it be this type of voice or this kind of disability? And this allows them to add more to the story than just the GM controlling it all. And that's a lot of great stuff. So if you happen to go check out the General Adventuring Company, they're really awesome. It's a small channel, but their games are great.
Yeah, I mean that's something that we've interjected in our own games quite often, and I feel like there's 2 ways of doing it. One is just, hey, you supply the information and I'm going to use it. The other being, hey, have you been here before? Right? Have you stayed at that temple before? Have you stayed at that church before? Who is your contact person? And then what we're doing is we're taking that background feature and we're going to build out a little bit more of that character's backstory, and we're going to make it a little bit more personal. And, what kind of relationship did you have with that person? Was it good? Was it contentious? So, 1, we're giving the players some agency, but 2, we're going to let them build out their background and backstory a little bit more. And 3, we're going to incorporate it and tell more story with it that the rest of the group can get involved in.
And I always love those, let's keep a relationship going. So whether it's we start the relationship here or it has been ongoing through a backstory, these are kind of things that if you've got a cyclical game where they're going to keep coming back to this church or, to this place where there's an NPC that's going to give, them a free stay, this could become something, and it could be something that gets built upon. It could be something that maybe this guy, and this contentious thing leads that person to, head off to join something villainous. Maybe they get kidnapped and have to get rescued at some point in time. NPCs that players care about and invest time in become something that is expected to be there, and when it's not, that's where like awesome story moments happen.
So there's another thing that you can do as well as the DM, and that is to collect all the collect all the backgrounds, know what your players have, and even if you just make wherever your notes are that you're going to refer to, you make a note of those background features and what they are, and take a look at them. Like, I don't know, the Outlander, for instance. You don't really need anything for that. There's nothing really for them to engage in when they say they want to do the thing. Now, you might, take some narrative with that and do something, or have the players take some narrative and do something. But for the most part, it's not going to require any real investment from you or the players. Now, those other features where it's like, I want to stay someplace for free, you can just get an index card or wherever you're taking your notes and just make a note. Make up a place, temple, church, residence, whatever would be applicable. A sailing vessel, if they happen to be a sailor and they can get book passage on a ship, and the captain, and maybe a couple things. So you just do that and have it in your back pocket that you can pull out at any time. And once they've used it once, just do it again, right? And just make a new one, because with the idea that, well, now they might use it again somewhere else. So you can kind of keep doing that and build it out over time. But when you do it the first time, there's this very specific part of the game when you should do this.
And when is that going to be?
I would say session 0, when you're like collecting information about the players and getting them to tell some of their story together. That's when, like, whenever these features come up for one of the characters, in your session 0 notes, make a note of this. So like, oh, here's a feature that the player might use. Now, I'm not saying you have to now remember to prompt your players to invoke this, but if they do invoke it, then you can go, oh, sure, here's the church, here's the name of the person that runs the church, and you just have that information in your back pocket and ready to go.
Yeah, session 0 is a great spot to go and grab these things, so that, number one, whether you're creating it whole cloth or whether you're collaborating with the player so that the story is being told together, or the information is being collected together so that the story could possibly happen later. All of those things are great ways to kind of set things up and really kick your game off on a high note.
Yeah, so, use those background features to enhance your game, enhance the play, and also in session 0, tell the players, hey, look, I'm not going to remember any of these. When they come up, feel free to bring them up and let me know. Now, there's, certain things are a little bit more difficult than others to use, right? The features, I think, are pretty straightforward, and it doesn't really break immersion when you're like, hey, I want to use the feature. But it is kind of weird where you're like, oh, this thing comes up. That is my flaw of I never tell a lie, right? Or my personality trait of, or my ideal, or my bond, right? Like, because unless you specifically say it, I feel like those things might be really easy to miss as like calling out it's that feature. And that's why I don't like the inspiration system the way it is that much. And also, like, for more experienced role players, I don't know that they use those things as much. I mean, I stopped using them right away. And I'm like, I'm just going to build out my character as I play, or in my backstory that I write. I think it's super useful for new players that are just getting into the hobby, that kind of have these ideas of like, oh, this is what my character is like, and kind of coming up with their character's personality and fleshing out their character's story. They're good prompts.
Absolutely. And, it's useful from that angle. I kind of go back and forth. There are times that I've used them if I like the options that are there. There's definitely times that I've like, none of those options fit the character that I'm going to play. I'm just going to make stuff up that I want to put in there. And that's perfectly fine, because it's designed to allow you to help build your character as you see fit. So all of those are options, either pre-rolling, choosing, making your own, or making it up as the game goes along.
Yeah, they all definitely work. How do you guys do it in your game? Do you guys use background features, or do you forget about them? Or are your players always trying to abuse them? Let us know down in the comments below. Share your thoughts and ideas with the Nerdarchy community.
While you're down there, don't forget to do all those fun things like, share, subscribe, you know the drill.
Quick reminder, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, we drop new videos here on the channel, so come on back. But hey, you can't wait till then. We've got you covered. We got a card up here. Playing D&D with a blank character sheet.
So until next time,
Stay nerdy.